Excelsior, true believers! You are about to embark upon a journey, a trip to the 70s and 80s when mighty Marvel Comics ruled over all. The Defenders, Doctor Strange, the Champions, Deathlock, the Submariner, the Incredible Hulk, Killraven, the Son of Satan, the Macabre Man-Thing, and all your other Bronze Age favorites every week appearing on Defenders Dialogue. Now here are your guides, Christopher Golden and Brian Keene.
Excelsior, true believers.
Excelsior indeed, and welcome back once again after a short delay to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
I'm Christopher Golden. Brian, it does feel like it's been much longer. It feels like I haven't spoken to you in months, although it's been only a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks, but I agree. It feels like it has been months. I don't know if that's just some weird effect of 2020 and everything that's happening, or
2020 has this. Doctor Who referred to it as timey-wimey stuff. Wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. It's so strange that like a day can feel like it lasts a year, but every other day seems like Friday.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't even know what day it is anymore. Dungeon Master, my 12-year-old, has started back to school. He's doing remote learning online, and I have to actually check my phone every night to see what the next day is. Is it a school day? So I know to get him up on time.
Well, I can tell you what day it is because we're not always recording on the same day. It's Tuesday, September 15th, 7 weeks exactly before the U.S. election.
That's right.
And all I can say is vote.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway,
today we are going to cover Marvel Comics The Man-Thing, issues 3 and 4. Once again, I will warn those who don't want politics or social commentary in their comic books that these issues are from the early 1970s, and they are chock full of politics and social commentary.
Yeah, and it is interesting. I mean, so we'll say it's written by Steve Gerber, art by Val Merrick, with inks by Jack Abel. The issue 3 is titled "Day of the Killer, Night of the Fool."
That's right. Now, if you are a longtime listener, then you will remember. Obviously, the show is called Defenders Dialogue because when we first started, we covered the entire lengthy run of Marvel's Defenders. And if you're a longtime listener, you'll remember, of course, the Foolkiller and Richard Rory both make an appearance. And I mentioned at that time that Richard Rory is, of course, a Man-Thing character, and that a previous iteration of the Foolkiller appeared in the Man-Thing's Rogues Gallery. Today, we will finally get to that storyline.
Yeah, and it's, again, it's very interesting to me the way that Gerber constructs. The Man-Thing began as a horror comic, but an adventure into fear. But pretty quickly, Gerber constructs his own little not rogues gallery even, but his own little sort of theatrical troupe. His little set of characters that continue to rotate in and out of these pages. And it feels very much like a TV series to me.
It does, very much so.
In the sense that rather than continuing to, he does bring in new characters, but like F.A. Schist and these guys at the work site, and in this now Richard Rory, there is this sort of sense that we're dealing with this ensemble of guest actors who come in and out. I don't know. Exactly. I found it very interesting. And
I think for a book like The Man-Thing, I think you have to do that. I think Gerber did it well. Claremont did it well with the revival, and our friend J.M. DeMatteis did it very well with the third incarnation of the book. Because, The Man-Thing He's an empath, but he doesn't speak. There's no dialogue. And his actions are pretty much limited to throwing things, hitting things, and burning them. So you have to have these.
So you're one true inspiration then.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got to have these other characters to carry the book and propel the plot forward, or else Wait a second,
though. I got to interrupt you. So, did you end up setting yourself on fire because you didn't think you'd burn if you weren't afraid?
Yeah, whatever knows fear, and I knew no fear. I was Daredevil, the man without fear. So
you thought, was no. But then you were like, oh wait, this is not a comic book.
No, I mean, Rory is, if you've studied Steve Gerber, Richard Rory is obviously his Mary Sue. I mean, Rory is a stand-in for Gerber. If you listen to interviews, we played one on this show that Scott Edelman conducted. Rory's dialogue matches the way Steve Gerber talks, and Gerber would go on to use him in pretty much everything he wrote. As we said, he shows up in Defenders. He showed up in Omega the Unknown. Lots of other places. This character particularly would show up. So, but this was where he got his start, and it's interesting other than Howard the Duck, Richard Rory's probably the character Gerber used the most, and it's interesting to see how he grows as Gerber grows as a writer.
Right. Well, we start out with the Man-Thing returning to the metal shack, the corrugated metal shack that was constructed to be a death trap for him in the previous issue.
That's right.
He has come back now that he's had a little time to recuperate from that experience to rip the shit out of this death trap shack. And of course, the workers for F.A. Schist, try to stop him. For some reason, these guys just never learn their lesson.
Well, they want revenge. They're standing around. Schist is there, and of course, Professor Wilbur Wickham, who designed the shack, he's there. And the one
still
worker
insisting that he killed the Man-Thing.
Yeah, the one worker says, hey, it's the monster that killed Jake. Jake, of course, was the foreman who tried to run over the Man-Thing with a bulldozer, and that didn't work. But this brain trust decides, well, I can stop him with a sledgehammer and a pickaxe, and that works out as well for him as it did for his boss.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think it's funny because then the workmen realize they're not getting anywhere trying to kill him. And then they realize that it's Schist and Wickham that the Man-Thing is after.
Right.
And they get out of the way. But now I have here's yet another opportunity for you to win the most valuable of all awards, Brian. No prize. The Defender's dialogue, no prize. Because it's clear on this page of art that Schist and Wickham are scared shitless.
Oh, the caption even tells us they scream shrilly in terror as the Man-Thing picks them up.
Grabs them and picks them up over his head and hurls them into the swamp. And yet, they don't burn, Brian. And whatever knows fear burns at the Man-Thing's touch. So what happened here?
Well, that's easy, Chris, and I will expect my no prize. Tom Brevoort, if you're listening, you know where to send it. Same place you send my royalties for Devil Slayer and for Thor. Schist and Wickham are both wearing sport jackets. So it's very clear that
I see.
The sports jackets started to burn and singe, but it hadn't yet reached their flesh. And then, of course, the Man-Thing tosses them into the water.
Happen here. I mean, there's no burning and no singeing of sport jackets. Perhaps they're unstable molecule sport jackets.
No, that's the fault of legendary inker Jack. Well, legendary for more than just inking, but that's Jack Abel's fault. He clearly or Linda Lessman, the colorist, one of them forgot to draw.
Yeah. I see. Wow. Throw them under the bus there. Well, in any case, anything to protect the legacy of Steve Gerber. It couldn't be that Steve Gerber made a mistake.
That's impossible, Chris.
All right. Well, the Man-Thing rips the shit out of the shack. and tears it apart as the workmen and Schist and Wickham make their escape on boats in the swamp.
That's right. We then transition just a mere mile away, where Richard and Ruth, who have now made peace with the surviving members of the bike gang, they're saying their goodbyes. And after the bikers pull away, Richard Rory realizes that he's still stuck in the swamp. You'll remember when we first meet him, his van has run out of gas on the edge of the swamp. He's still out of gas.
Yes. These guys go off after he's saved their money and their lives and their motorcycle club, and yet they ride away just as Richard Rory realizes, oh shit, I guess I should have asked them to get me some gas. We're stuck in the swamp. We cut back to French and Darby and their girlfriends on their choppers, because they are the classic, clearly Harley choppers here.
Right.
But Brian, as they ride down the highway, there's a lone figure standing in the road, to bar their passing.
That's right. And he is the Foolkiller. I remember reading this as a kid. I told Chris before we started recording, I must have been 8 or 9 years old when I read this, and I thought the Foolkiller was so badass. I mean, clearly he's a bad guy, but he's just badass.
Now, see, this is the difference between you and me, man. We're the same age, but when I read the first appearances of the Foolkiller, not here, but in Defenders, I just saw the outfit, and I actually did read one issue of Man-Thing with the Foolkiller. I don't remember which one it was at this point. And I was like, this guy is the stupidest looking, like, it's like the hat and the sash that flies from the back of the hat.
I didn't care for the costume. What I cared for was the gun. He had the most awesome gun.
But it's like, to me, I looked at him and I thought, your name is the Foolkiller, so the first thing you should do is turn that gun on yourself. Because you look like a fool with that hat with the stupid sash there. I mean, you think a cape is dumb? The sash is just ridiculous. Anyway,
I don't know. I always
adoration of the foolish Foolkiller.
I always dug the character. I particularly am enamored with Gerber's 12-issue Foolkiller series.
I liked that.
I thought it was a great meditation on characters like the Punisher, and what they would really be like in real life. But this first incarnation of the Foolkiller, I did, as a child reading this, I did not realize what a right-wing Christian conservative character this was.
Mm-hmm. And how absolutely savage. I mean, so let's just preface this by saying that this iteration of the Foolkiller is not only is a serial killer, but he's an absolutely lunatic, savage madman who not only is going to kill the people who he identifies as fools, but essentially anyone in his path is dead.
Yeah. Yeah. So he pulls the gun on the bikers. He fires, disintegrates the choppers. Disintegrates French's chopper. And then he disintegrates the other chopper. And then he walks up to them. First, he approaches French. And he says, if you wish to retain your life, you'll answer this question. Where is Richard Rory? And he identifies Richard Rory as a fool. French refuses to answer, and the Foolkiller decides that he too must be a fool and disintegrates him with his gun. Then he turns the gun on Darby. Same thing happens. Darby refuses to answer. He's decreed to be a fool as well, and he is disintegrated.
Yeah. Yep. And I will say that after Darby had been a total asshole in the previous appearance, the last episode, when he's at gunpoint, having just seen his best friend disintegrated, asked about the location of Richard Rory, Darby says, why should I let you do this to him?
Yep.
Which I'm like, wow, that's the most like self-sacrificing moment in many a year in comics.
Yep.
He knows that he's about to get killed, and he'll save his own life because the Foolkiller perceives it to be foolish not to give up Rory's location.
Exactly.
And if you tell him where Rory is, then by dint of that, you're not a fool. And Darby gives up his own life. Brian, I'd be like, Brian Keene is right down the street. If the van is out of gas, you'd be able to find him. Just go that way right now. You're fine.
Let me draw you a map.
Let me draw you a map.
Well, we come to find out Richard Rory isn't the only cast member that the Foolkiller is looking for. He's also looking for F.A. Schist, and he then shows up at the F.A. Schist construction site right as Schist himself is crawling out of the swamp. And, Schist is saying, my suit is ruined. The man-thing tried to kill me. He's got to be destroyed. And the Foolkiller tells him, he will be by me. But he won't die alone because I'm going to kill you too. This was always my favorite part of the Foolkiller.
Mind you, this is the one thing about the Foolkiller I always loved.
Yeah. He would show up 24 hours before he killed the victim, and he would hand them his card. And it always reads, Foolkiller, e pluribus unum, you have 24 hours to live. Use them to repent or be forever damned to the pits of hell where goeth all fools. Today is the last day of the rest of your life. Use it wisely or die a fool.
There you go. And F.A. Schist doesn't take it seriously. He sets his workers on the Foolkiller. The Foolkiller shows what his gun can do. And strangely, those employees decide maybe now is not the time to do what the boss tells us to do. And the Foolkiller gets in F.A. Schist's gorgeous convertible and takes off.
That's right.
Now we run into a coincidence that I'm sad that Gerber did not establish as cosmically influenced.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, the car that the Foolkiller gets into drives away in is identical to the car that shows up randomly in the swamp where Rory and Ruth are.
Well, that is explained in the next issue.
It is?
Yeah. Should I spoil it for you and our listeners?
Yes. I read the next issue, but I didn't see the explanation for the identical. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, an identical convertible shows up, and this country club guy, who's drawn very much to look like Steve Gerber, climbs out and offers some gas to Richard, Rory, and Ruth. This country club guy is, in fact, the Foolkiller, just not in his costume.
I don't think that's the case.
I think it is. Let's continue on.
Yeah, no, it's not the case, but go ahead. We'll get there. All right.
Well, he offers it to them.
Yeah.
And, they're like, thank you very much. And then he drives off. And then we come back to, again, that identical car. And now the Foolkiller's driving it again. And we find out that the third person he's looking for is Ted Salas, who he is also deemed a fool. And who he has figured out is, in fact, the Man-Thing.
There you go. And how we know that, we don't know. It must be based on what we will discover in the next issue are his divine powers. Anyway, and again, he says here that he's driven by a divine scheme. We see F.A. Schist in a helicopter, Brian.
Well, we see a helicopter that he thinks is carrying F.A. Schist.
Right, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And he shoots the helicopter down. It crashes, but it turns out F.A. Schist wasn't inside. It's a bunch of flood victims from a nearby town who were en route to a shelter.
Yes. And who are now climbing out of the downed helicopter into the swamp only to be menaced by Hank the alligator and his family.
So the Foolkiller is,
and Nancy and no, I'm not gonna. Teresa, all the Wagners are there.
Yeah, the Foolkiller's distraught. He only kills fools. These are innocents, and they're in the water, saying, "Look, this crazy guy just shot us down." And then the Man-Thing shows up, plants himself between the flood victims, now crash victims, and the Wagner family of alligators, and then we get a gorgeous double splash page,
and absolutely stunning, so great. And I want to say one thing. I'm looking at this splash page, and Brian, I assume that you have seen the brilliant film written by my friends Sean and Michael Rasmussen, Crawl.
Oh, hell yes!
Last year. Now, I saw this double page splash, and I thought, what Crawl needed was the Man-Thing. But continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gorgeous page. It would look great on a shirt. The Man-Thing, as he always does, he makes quick work of the Wagner family of alligators. And the Foolkiller has a change of heart. He says, "I have decided to spare you for now. Do not force me to reconsider, Salus. But few are the words that have the power to pierce the thick fog which enshrouds the mind of the Man-Thing. But Salus is one of them." And he feels the hate and the fear coming off of the Foolkiller, and he approaches.
And the Foolkiller unleashes the full power of his gun. I don't remember what he calls it. His energy weapon.
Fool Blaster.
Yes. Well, he fires it unceasingly. Even the white fire of the Almighty cannot cleanse the spawn of the swamp without effort. But man or monster or Satan incarnate, you will fall. And fall, Brian, the Man-Thing does.
That's right. Could he be dead?
According to the Foolkiller, the Man-Thing is dead. Same team on Man-Thing number 4, which is subtitled "The Making of a Madman," because we do get the origin of the Foolkiller in this issue.
That's right. We open right where we just left off. And now remember, the Foolkiller felt remorse for shooting down the chopper because the refugees on board, clearly they were not fools. They were innocents in this war. That lasts for exactly one more page.
Well, I just love this. "First, you shoot my copter out of the sky," and the Foolkiller says, "For which I apologize, sir. I mistakenly believed you were someone else." In other words, you are so unreasonable to be upset with me for shooting you out of the sky.
I said I was sorry.
Yeah. What more do you want?
Yeah. So, he goes on to brag that it has come to pass the Man-Thing is dead, slain by heaven's finest warrior. The pilot demands, he says, "I want to know why this is happening, and don't give me any of that bullshit about heaven." And right. The Foolkiller snaps because to scoff and deny heaven in one breath, he's a fool. The Foolkiller.
So he's actually a Karen.
Yeah.
Foolkiller's a Karen. "You deny God? I want to speak to your manager." "Oh, wait, I'll just shoot you in the face."
There it is. So he guns the guy down. We, as Chris said, we see just how insane he is.
Yeah, you see, even from the art. I mean, Yeah, so, and he says to the guy's family, "Do not mourn for him like any fool. He deserves only righteous contempt. He suffered the fate of all who do not know me for his messenger. He suffered the wrath of the Foolkiller." And we'll discover, Brian, in this issue, that the Foolkiller doesn't only think that he's killing for God. He literally thinks he is the new Messiah.
Right.
Anyway, then we get a great sequence because in front of the family who've just seen the dad murdered by the Foolkiller, we see the Man-Thing's quote-unquote corpse is floating in the water and then slowly rises. In fact, we learn he is not dead, and he can't be killed. It says drained of moisture by Foolkiller's ray of purification. There's the word we're looking for. That's a bit like nether trident. He has lain here, slowly drinking in life from the fen waters, and now his strength, his consciousness, for lack of a better word, returned. His mottled, misshapen mass rises from the murk. That's how my wife describes me when I get up in the morning. So basically, like, he was basically drained. He was too dried out. And that's why he collapsed. But now he's been once again restored by the swamp.
Right. And they, the survivors, they think maybe he can understand them. And, they let him know that they need help. And the Man-Thing does understand, though not on a verbal level. He feels their plight, and some tiny flicker of humanity within him causes him to respond and begin to lead them to safety.
Yeah. Well, and then we get the Foolkiller driving full speed down the road. We get Rory and Ruth driving the opposite direction. They nearly have a head-on collision.
Yep.
During which Richard Rory recognizes the Foolkiller. He knows who he is and knows he's there to kill him. And the Foolkiller does also recognize him, but does not turn around, Brian. In fact, he keeps going. And in order to avoid mocking it, I will let you describe the next page, which is classic 1970s Marvel.
Yes. If you are around Chris or my age, you might remember the video game Spy Hunter. Foolkiller has the Spy Hunter truck. Remember, in Spy Hunter, you'd drive along and then your truck would show up and you could drive up onto the back, the ramp would pop out, and you'd get all kinds of weapons. Well, he presses a button and the back end of this tractor trailer opens up and he drives the convertible up inside, and inside we have his fool-killing lab. There's all kinds of equipment, scientific equipment and gadgets, and there's also this weird Frankenstein-styled tank filled with this noxious fluid, and inside that tank...
Well, we'll get to that in 1 second.
Okay.
First, I have to just say that everything we've seen about Foolkiller up to now doesn't hint at anything we're about to see, including the thing with the truck. The thing with the truck is right out of 1970s Captain America TV movies starring Red Brown, or 1980s Fall Guy with Lee Majors, or because it's one of the few things that they could do as a low budget stunt on TV and in movies is this kind of nonsense of like, hey, it would be so cool if he drives the car up into the back of the truck while it's still moving. And so I love it and I hate it all at the same time. His secret hideout is the back of this tractor trailer truck, which actually I should take back. It's not actually moving. It's which should make me think that it's impossible that he's like not smashing into this equipment. But okay, so now we get to learn the Foolkiller's origin. And now it gets really fucking weird.
Yeah, I mentioned the tank. Inside the tank is a corpse floating in formaldehyde. Not just any corpse. It's a preacher named Mike.
Reverend Mike.
Yep.
This is such a weird story.
Go ahead.
The Foolkiller's mom was a nurse in the Korean War.
His father was a GI in World War II.
Right. His father was a GI not in World War II, right?
Yeah, World War II.
Oh, okay, yeah. He was born, so the Foolkiller was born in the last days of World War II, and his father died the day he was born.
That's right.
His mom was a nurse in the Korean War and died on his 9th birthday.
That's right.
Somehow he was born crippled. We don't really use the word crippled much anymore. That's the word used in the comic. But he was born a paraplegic. And he worshipped his parents. And he was fine. And now we get to this thing that is just like, it feels like a Stephen King backstory, doesn't it?
A little bit, yes. Yes, it does.
It also reminds me of, if anybody is not watching this, I haven't seen all of it yet because I'm parsing it out. But if you've watched the new Perry Mason on HBO, which is terrific and really grim, there's a lot of this sort of like evangelical tent revival sort of stuff going on,
right?
And it reminded me of that too.
Well, yeah. So the Foolkiller, he's this handicapped kid. He gets sent to live with his grandma, and he worships the military because he wants to be like his parents. The thing he wants to do the most in life is march, and he can't because he's confined to a wheelchair until grandma takes him to Reverend Mike's tent revival, and the Reverend Mike lays hands on him and prays over him, and all of a sudden, the Foolkiller can stand. He can walk. Like I said, I read this issue as a kid, didn't think twice about any of this because I grew up in an area where we had these sort of tent revivals, and I would see things like this.
Did you ever go?
What's that?
Did you ever go to one?
Oh, yeah. I used to get dragged to them. As a kid, I wrote about this in my book, The Triangle of Belief. As a kid, you'll believe anything. You believe in Bigfoot and Santa Claus side by side. And it's all part of this wonderful tapestry. As an adult, you start to question and pick out what you believe and what you don't believe. Maybe you still believe in Bigfoot. Maybe you no longer believe in Santa Claus. But I know even as a young kid, we would go to these tent revivals and I would see, people handling snakes, and I would see the healing things, and everyone else around me would be rejoicing, and I was scared shitless by it. I don't even know, even as an adult, that I could articulate why, but it used to terrify me, these things. I was right at home reading this as a kid. I'm like, hey, this is a monster comic book. It's a horror comic book. This is scary,
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm looking at it and going, so I'm trying to figure out what Gerber saying that Reverend Mike did actually heal
the Foolkiller? Yeah. And I mean, I used to see, I never saw anybody in a wheelchair stand up. But thinking back, like there were people that supposedly had cancer that, weren't in pain anymore. And, somebody with cataracts, the cataracts supposedly went away. Now, some of that may just be nonsense. The passage of time. And, I'm not remembering everything clearly. Some of it was certainly probably sleight of hand. You pull a tumor out and it's really just a handful of chicken guts that the preacher had. Gerber was certainly commenting on it.
I just find the whole thing fascinating. And I found it so jarring when I got to this. I was like, wait, this is the direction this character is going? Yeah. Okay. I think it's also of its period, just like that the 18-wheeler with the ramp in the back is of its period. I think that this tent revival is very much of its period.
Very much so.
So the young Foolkiller is healed and becomes a preacher in his own right. Within 2 years, people were falling at my feet, calling me more than human, calling me a new Messiah. And I knew they were right, he says.
That's right. But he was still deeply troubled. There he was, heaven's 18-year-old gift to the earth, and the world was coming apart all around him.
And I wonder if Gerber's writing this about how he felt when he was 18 as well. I don't know.
I mean, like we said, Richard Rory is obviously a stand-in for Gerber, but I suspect maybe there's a little bit of Gerber in the Foolkiller as well.
Well, I feel like there's a little bit of the Foolkiller in Brian too. I mean, it's like the difference between you and the Foolkiller is a purification ray and one bad day.
Watch your
anyway,
tongue, fool.
What was that? What?
So watch your tongue, fool. I pity the fool.
That's right. I pity the fool.
Again, we get this panel that could be about 2020, but it's about 1975. The Foolkiller says society was collapsing, and it was all the work of fools, criminals, protesters, dope pushers, mocking the Lord and the military. And that's when he gets his calling. That's when he sews his costume.
That's when he reads QAnon posts on social media and decides.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it really could be 2020.
Yeah. I mean, he's literally, a right winger who picks up his gun and goes to a protest to shoot people.
Yep. And he comes home.
I mean, literally.
Yeah, he really is. He comes home to tell Mike, this plan that God has put him on. And he catches Mike in sexual congress and drunk off his ass with a woman. And he realizes then that Mike is a fool.
Well, and again, like, let's just say it's Mike with a hot young woman sitting on a love seat. He's holding a bottle of wine. She's holding a wine glass up, and scattered across her lap and on the love seat is cash.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I love it.
Yep. So the Foolkiller, he knew right then and there that Mike had become one of the fools, so he had no choice but to kill him.
Now it takes the Joe Lansdale twist.
But Mike was the man who gave the world the Foolkiller. So he made a shrine, his symbol of the route to heaven. And by that, he put Mike's corpse in a big vat of formaldehyde on the back of his spy truck.
So he can talk to it.
Yep.
So if you thought the Foolkiller was crazy before, now you know how crazy he really is.
That's right.
Not only did he murder this guy, like if you see in comics somebody suspended in one of these chambers, usually it's because they're either a captive or someone has put them in, like Mr. Freeze put his wife in suspended animation so he could cure her. But no, right. He's just preserving the corpse of his first victim so he can consult with him like an oracle.
So he then, he pulls up on his computer his next three targets: F.A. Schist, Richard Rory, and Ted Salas, a.k.a. the Man-Thing. He thinks that he has already killed the Man-Thing. Before dawn, Rory and Schist will also be gone. And we then transition to one of those victims, F.A. Schist, he and Wickham are fleeing in the Jeep. And the Man-Thing brings the survivors of the helicopter crash out into the road, to get them some help. Schist sees the Man-Thing lumber out in the road and orders his driver to run him down. And what happens, Chris?
Well, it doesn't go well, Brian. And it's an absolutely gorgeous, splash page of the Jeep smashing into the Man-Thing. But then basically the Man-Thing is a hood ornament, and he begins to slide himself back off the hood of the Jeep. And the woman insists that Schist take her and her children to safety. And he's trying to refuse. And the Man-Thing basically points at him in silence, much like the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, points at him, and Schist is like, oh, okay, I guess I will take these people to safety. So this was the Man-Thing's way to get help. They get in the car, so it's the driver, Schist, Wickham, and the woman and her 2 children who survived the helicopter crash. They're driving down the highway now in the Jeep, and they're seen by the Foolkiller, who gets in his big pickup truck and proceeds to reenact Duel. Also from this era.
He smashes into the back of the Jeep, where we are told that there is screaming and the sound of scraping metal and the cracking of bones. So, he's done some damage here. And it
looks, I will say, at this moment, it looks as if he has just murdered all of these people, including this woman and her 2 children.
That's right.
That's not what's happened, but I was reading it going, oh, shit, that's cold.
Yeah.
And now we come to the resolution of our mystery from last issue, Brian. Because
Richard and Ruth are at a diner, and he tells her that he was a disc jockey in a small town in Ohio, and the Foolkiller sent him a threat, to tell him to quit playing blasphemous music. So he went on the air and dedicated George Harrison's The Art of Dying to the Foolkiller, and then the Foolkiller blew the radio station's tower to smithereens and sent him another threatening note.
There you go. So now we have that bit of history filled in. And then a familiar red convertible pulls up outside, and the guy who had brought them the gas in the swamp comes in, and he's like, hey, I can't believe, look who's here, and they have this moment. And then Richard Rory looks out the window of the diner, and he sees the car and automatically thinks that this guy is the Foolkiller.
And you know what, Chris?
Yes.
Mark it down on your calendar. Today, September 15th, 2020. Brian Keene admits he was wrong about something.
I think you should get Mary in here.
She's shouting from her office. She's verifying.
So,
ladies and gentlemen, joining us on the air now, Mary San Giovanni.
I want documented, notarized evidence. I want to frame it.
We have the audio, and you're a personal witness, Mary.
Exactly. That I think I can work with that. I can work with that.
All right.
Yeah, you're right.
Make sure you tweet that out, Mary.
You're right, because while he's beating up the country club guy, the real Foolkiller shows up in his tractor trailer and rams it through the diner. I don't know how I missed rereading that. I don't know. My brain wasn't working.
That's all right. Well, and basically the Foolkiller smashes the tractor trailer through the diner. He grabs Richard Rory, throws him over his shoulder, and he says, Brian, it pains me that one so young as Richard Rory must die, but I do not question his commands. I am but a servant, an avenging angel. I acknowledge only one authority, and any who defy him are fools and must perish. So Richard Rory has been taken away by the Foolkiller, who's driving down the road. And what does the Foolkiller see, Brian?
Not only have Wickham and all of the helicopter refugees survived, but so has F.A. Schist. They're injured, but they are very much alive. And the Foolkiller jumps out of the truck. He's like, you should be dead unless this was some divine plan for you to suffer before I kill you.
Exactly. So then he says, no, so be it. You and Richard Rory will die together. He karate chops. Again, it's the 70s. He karate chops F.A. Schist in the neck and drags him into his tractor trailer cab. No one is trying to stop him because
Wickham tries. Wickham does make an attempt. He says, you can't get away with this. We'll get help. And he says, interfering with heaven's work is foolish business, Wickham. Need I say more?
Exactly. And then the Man Thing is watching all of this unfold. As the Foolkiller pulls the tractor trailer over and at gunpoint gets F.A. Schist and Richard Rory to get into the back of the vehicle.
right,
to go up the magic ramp and join him and the corpse of Father Mike at gunpoint. But as as the Foolkiller is explaining why they have to die, explaining his whole, commission from God, another person he thought he had killed already. I mean, he sucks at this. He sucks at killing people.
He's a terrible holy serial killer.
It's like if you went on, Angie's List or LinkedIn, you'd be like, no, do not get this guy to be your holy serial killer. He just, all of the people he thinks he's killed are not actually dead.
That's right. And now that the Man-Thing has come back to life, the Foolkiller reasons that if the Man-Thing came back from the dead, that makes him the Messiah, meaning Man-Thing is the Messiah, and that makes the Foolkiller nothing.
Right. That means he himself is nothing. Everything he's ever believed about himself is called into question, and he becomes afraid, Brian.
That's right.
And as everybody listening to this show is tired of hearing us say, whatever knows fear burns at the Man-Thing's touch. The Foolkiller does burn, and this is why don't you give us the...
Well, he's still got one good hand. Apparently, he's ambidextrous and can fire a gun with both hands. He snatches up the purification ray. He's about to blast the Man-Thing. Richard Rory jumps in, and though he saves the Man-Thing, the weapon discharges, smashes Mike's tank full of formaldehyde, and a inch-thick shard of plexiglass lodges deep in the Foolkiller's heart,
killing him.
That's right.
Yes. So this is the strange irony of this moment. He unintentionally he has essentially killed himself.
That's right.
Another opportunity for you to win a no prize, Brian, because you failed miserably earlier. On that final page of issue 4, as you described, he does switch hands with the gun. But in one panel, he's got it in his left hand. In the next panel, it's in his right hand. And in the next panel, it's again in his left hand.
Right. That's divine intervention, Chris. I mean, you can't question the will of God.
It is the will of God. Yes, clearly.
Yes. The final caption tells us that the Foolkiller's holy war has ended. Now, of course, longtime listeners know that not to be true because another Foolkiller would take up the mission and menace the Defenders. But we've already covered that. Next issue, Chris, we cover what is considered by many comic historians to be one of the best issues of this series, Night of the Laughing Dead. I know that Gerber himself considered it to be one of his best works as well. Have you read that previously?
I have not, and I'm looking forward to it both because of its reputation and because it's drawn by one of Marvel's finest horror artists, Mike Ploog. Exactly.
Well, and you'll get your wish because we return the Man-Thing to his horror roots. You see what I did there?
I did see that.
All right, folks, we thank you for coming back after our 2-week vacation. There have been some changes. There is no more Brian Keene Radio Network. It's been closed down along with its flagship show, The Horror Show with Brian Keene. And Chris and I are free agents now. We're doing this just for the fun of it and the love of it. That being said, if you'd like to support us and give us some money and advertise on the show, we'll be happy to read your ad. But we're not actually featuring ads anymore. But there is a way you can support us if you listen on iTunes or Spotify or YouTube or wherever. Give us a like, give us a 5-star review. That'd be great. But we want you to know we just appreciate you taking this journey with us.
Following us wherever we go, our 4, 5, 6 listeners. Now that we've had the entire Wagner family as alligators, we probably will have a few more.
Yeah.
All right, Brian.
My friend.
Excelsior, true believers.
We'll see you next week, folks.
Defenders Dialogue. You can listen to this episode and all previous episodes for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play Music, and wherever else podcasts are available. Defenders Dialogue is written and produced by Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Our theme music is by Xander Harris. Our engineer is Matt Wilderson. Check out his books on Amazon.com.